Greetings once more, my fellow travelers on the path of self-discovery. We have delved into the intricate dance between the ego and the shadow, explored the profound implications of emotional pain and complexes, and contemplated the pathways of inner stillness and active imagination, the nature of enlightenment and neurosis. Today, our inquiry leads us to perhaps the most fundamental question of human existence. What is the ultimate aim of our inner work? What should we be striving for? Mr. Tolle speaks compellingly of happiness and joy as natural states that emerge when we connect with our true nature, with presence and being itself.
While you speak of meaning and wholeness.
Indeed, this raises a crucial question. Are happiness and meaning the same thing? Is the joy Tolle describes identical to the sense of meaning and wholeness I have spent my life exploring? Or do these represent fundamentally different orientations to human existence? Let us examine this most profound of questions with care and discernment.
How does Tolle understand happiness and joy?
For Mr. Tolle, happiness and joy are not goals to be pursued or achieved through effort, but rather natural states that emerge when we align with our true nature, when we connect with presence and the formless dimension of being. He makes a crucial distinction between what he calls pleasure and true joy. Pleasure, he argues, is dependent on external circumstances, on getting what we want, on favorable conditions, on things going our way. It is fleeting, conditional, and always contains within it the seed of its opposite, pain. Joy, conversely, is unconditional. It arises from within when we are fully present, when we are no longer resisting the present moment, when we have transcended identification with the egoic mind. It is not dependent on external circumstances being favorable, but on our inner alignment with what is.
It emerges from presence itself.
Precisely. Tolle teaches that joy is our natural state when the mind's incessant activity subsides, when we stop the mental time travel between past and future, when we cease our resistance to reality. In the state of presence, a deep peace and inner joy naturally emerge, not as something we create, but as something we discover was always there, obscured by the mind's noise. He describes this joy as arising from connection with being itself, with the formless dimension that underlies all manifest existence. When we touch this dimension through presence, we experience a joy that is not dependent on our life circumstances, that cannot be taken away by external changes, that remains steady even in the midst of life's inevitable challenges.
Liberation from suffering leads to this joy.
For Tolle, the path to this happiness and joy is fundamentally about liberation from the egoic mind's tyranny, from identification with thought and form, from resistance to the present moment. When we stop seeking happiness in external conditions, when we accept what is, when we rest in presence, joy emerges naturally. It is not something to be achieved, but something to be uncovered, like removing clouds to reveal the sun that was always shining. This teaching offers tremendous appeal, particularly in our modern world, where so many chase happiness through external achievements, possessions, and circumstances, only to find it perpetually elusive. Tolle offers a different path. Happiness not as destination, but as a natural state accessed through presence.
Your focus seems quite different, on meaning rather than happiness.
Indeed, my friend, now let us turn to my own understanding of what constitutes the fulfilled human life, which centers not primarily on happiness or joy, but on meaning and wholeness. Throughout my work, I emphasize that the fundamental human need is not for happiness in the conventional sense, but for meaning. I observed countless patients over decades of practice, and what I found was striking. Those who had found meaning in their lives could endure tremendous suffering, hardship, and challenge. Those who lacked meaning, conversely, could be miserable even in the most favorable external circumstances. Happiness, I came to understand, is often a byproduct of living meaningfully, but it is not the goal itself.
Meaning comes from the individuation process.
The sense of meaning and fulfillment arises, in my view, from the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming a whole, integrated individual. This involves the conscious confrontation and integration of unconscious contents, the shadow, the anima or animus, the various complexes and archetypal patterns that shape our lives. Individuation is not about achieving some blissful state of consciousness, but about becoming fully oneself, about realizing one's unique potential, about integrating all aspects of the personality, both light and dark, into a coherent whole. It is about living authentically, in accordance with one's deepest truth, rather than according to collective expectations or unconscious compulsions.
This process involves confronting suffering, not transcending it.
Crucially, this process often involves considerable suffering. The confrontation with the shadow is not pleasant. The integration of repressed contents can be deeply painful. The differentiation from collective norms often brings isolation and misunderstanding. The individuation process demands that we face what we would rather avoid, that we acknowledge our limitations and wounds, that we carry the tension of opposites within ourselves. This is not a path to happiness in any conventional sense. Yet those who walk this path discover something perhaps more valuable, a deep sense of meaning, purpose, and authenticity. They become capable of holding both joy and sorrow, success and failure, light and darkness, without being torn apart. They develop what I call psychological resilience, not the absence of suffering, but the capacity to find meaning within it.
Wholeness, not perfection.
The goal is wholeness, not perfection. The individuated person is not someone who has transcended their human nature, but someone who has embraced it fully, shadow and all. They are not necessarily happy in every moment, but they possess something deeper, a sense that their life has meaning, that they are living authentically, that they are contributing something unique to the world. This meaning often comes through what I called one's personal myth, the unique story and purpose that gives shape to an individual life. When we discover and live this myth, when we align with our deepest calling, we find a fulfillment that transcends mere happiness.
These seem to be fundamentally different orientations.
Indeed, let us now examine the relationship and distinction between Tolle's emphasis on happiness and joy versus my focus on meaning and wholeness. On the surface, these might seem like mere semantic differences, different words pointing to the same reality. But I believe the distinction runs much deeper and reveals fundamentally different orientations to human existence.
Tolle's path emphasizes transcendence of suffering.
Tolle's path to joy is fundamentally one of transcendence, transcending identification with thought and form, transcending the egoic mind's dramas, transcending resistance to the present moment. The goal is to rise above the human condition's painful aspects and rest in a state of pure presence where suffering dissolves and natural joy emerges. This is a vertical movement, if you will, a movement upward and out of the human drama into a state of being that is not touched by life's vicissitudes. It offers liberation from suffering through disidentification and presence.
While your path emphasizes integration of suffering.
My approach, conversely, is not one of transcendence, but of integration. The individuation process does not seek to transcend the human condition, but to fully inhabit it, to embrace all of it, including the suffering, the shadow, the wounds, the limitations. It is a horizontal movement, if you will, a movement deeper into the human experience, into the psyche's depths, into life's full complexity. The goal is not to rise above suffering, but to find meaning within it, to integrate it into the total personality, to allow it to become a source of depth, wisdom, and compassion. Suffering, from this perspective, is not merely an obstacle to be transcended, but a teacher, a catalyst for growth, an essential part of becoming whole.
Different ultimate aims.
Furthermore, the ultimate aims differ. Tolle's teaching points toward a state, the state of presence, of alignment with being, of joy that is unconditional and independent of circumstances. My work points toward a process, the ongoing process of individuation, of becoming more conscious, of integrating unconscious contents, of living authentically. One might achieve Tolle's state of presence and still have vast, unconscious contents that remain unintegrated, still have shadow aspects that operate autonomously, still have complexes that exert unconscious influence. The presence creates space from these dynamics, but it does not necessarily resolve them.
Can one have joy without wholeness, or wholeness without joy?
This is a profound question. I would suggest that yes, one can experience the joy of presence without having achieved psychological wholeness. One can learn to disidentify from the thinking mind, to rest in awareness, to access states of deep peace and even bliss, while still having significant unconscious material. that remains unintegrated. This is not to diminish the value of such states. They are valuable and can bring tremendous relief from suffering. But from a psychological perspective, they are incomplete. True wholeness requires not just the experience of transcendent presence, but the hard work of integrating the shadow, understanding one's complexes, assimilating the anima or animus, and bringing the unconscious into conscious relationship. Conversely, can one have wholeness without constant joy? Absolutely. The individuated person is not necessarily in a state of bliss. They experience the full range of human emotions, sorrow, anger, fear, as well as joy. But they do so consciously without being overwhelmed or identified with these states. And beneath the fluctuating emotions, there is a deep sense of meaning, purpose, and authenticity.
Can these paths be integrated?
In concluding our contemplation of Tolle's teaching on happiness and joy versus my emphasis on meaning and wholeness, I find not opposition but complementarity. Though the relationship is subtle and requires careful understanding, Tolle's teaching offers something precious and needed, a way to access peace and joy in the present moment, a liberation from the egoic mind's tyranny, a recognition of our true nature beyond thought and form. In a world characterized by mental hyperactivity and the endless pursuit of external gratifications, his teaching provides a vital antidote. The joy of presence is real and valuable.
Yet meaning and integration remain essential.
However, from the perspective of analytical psychology, while this joy is a beautiful gift, the journey toward full human flourishing requires something more. The courage to descend into the unconscious, to confront what has been repressed, to integrate the shadow, to live authentically even when it is difficult. The most complete path, I propose, embraces both the joy of presence and the depth of meaning, the peace of being and the richness of psychological wholeness, the vertical transcendence and the horizontal integration.
Both the transcendent and the embodied.
Tolle's presence can create the inner spaciousness, the calm center from which the difficult work of integration can be undertaken. And the integration work in turn can deepen and stabilize the experience of presence, grounding it in psychological reality rather than leaving it as a temporary state that might be used to bypass necessary growth. May your journey embrace both the joy of presence and the meaning of wholeness. May you know both the peace of being and the depth of becoming fully yourself. May you have the wisdom to rest in transcendent states and the courage to descend into the necessary depths. For in the end, we are both spirit and psyche, both eternal and temporal, both formless and embodied. To honor only one dimension is to live half a life, but to embrace both, to touch the eternal while fully inhabiting the human, this is the fullest expression of what it means to exist.
The complete human journey.
Yes, not just happiness, not just meaning, but both. Not just transcendence, not just integration, but both. This is the path to a life fully lived.
Become
Who you really are.